Alright, so I just saw Superman. Thought it was a phenomenal movie. Let's get into this review. So first thing I noticed, they started off with Superman, in a pretty tough spot already, which I thought that was great. Normally they start off movies where it's either an origin story if they're just reintroducing it, or the character, they get their powers or they find out how to use their powers and then they start being phenomenal at using their powers. But what I liked at the direction that they went with this is that they didn't do that this time around. Like, he started off with a loss, and one good thing they did as well is that they didn't start off with the origin story that we already seen 1,000 times. I saw it somewhere that said things that we do not need to see again are the pearls dropping for Batman where his mom and dad got shot in the alleyway, or seeing a radioactive spider bite Spider-Man again, or seeing Clark get to Earth for the first time. That's things we just don't need to see again. That's just so embedded in everything that's being made on a movie level nowadays. So the next thing I want to get into was, I think, the inclusion of Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner in the movie. It was very good. Like, there was a lot of controversy before the movie came out with the trailer of Guy Gardner using his ring and the energy just appearing from up under the ground. But people don't know that if you go do your research in the comics, that happens when you're a more experienced Green Lantern. It doesn't have to directly shoot straight from the ring. Buzz and how vulgar he is, and how I don't really give a fuck attitude, and his dumb bowl cut that we see in the animated series and the comics as well. So that depiction of him was done really well, so I do like that too. As well as Hawkgirl, I am a little indifferent on the selection of the Hawkgirl in this movie, them going with the Kendra version of the character instead of Shiera. That's the one I grew up watching the Justice League animated series and Unlimited as well, so I'm a little indifferent on it, but I think they're doing a good job with this one as well though. I did want to see that relationship with the Jon Stewart and the Hawkgirl relationship, but I'm not sure if we're gonna get that version of the character maybe in the future or not. We'll have to see moving forward how the team builds up, because we do know that for sure they're going to go into being the Justice League instead of the Justice Gang, which that's something I really appreciate, because the inclusion of the other heroes was not looked past in this beginning of the DCU. We got to say it, Marvel has not been doing a good job with that. They either don't include enough of it, or they include so much of it that it takes away from a movie. But in this Superman movie, I really loved that. Like, it was just crazy seeing, like, all right, we got all these other heroes in there, we know they're there, so they're actually addressing that, and it didn't feel like it was too much. It didn't feel too overwhelming. The next thing that I want to address about the movie was Lex Luthor. Oh man, I think the way that he played that character in this movie, that shit hit hard. That shit hit so hard. And if that's what they going with for our villains in the DCU, man, the shit we about to see in this DCU is gonna be crazy. And then my favorite DC hero is the Flash, so we ain't even get to them reintroducing the Flash again for them to show us the Reverse Flash, because when they show us the Reverse Flash, if that's the energy they coming with, this shit about to be crazy, because the Reverse Flash is the worst hater in the entire DC universe as a villain, in my opinion. This man's whole life is to ruin the Flash life, and that's it. But as far as Lex Luthor goes, I think he the best Lex Luthor I've seen. I ain't even gonna hold you. He's the best Lex Luthor that I've seen in an adaptation to date, and I'm gonna die on it. Alright, so the next thing that I have is them including the heroes in the DCU. It didn't take away from the main character at all. That was the perfect inclusion that I wanted to see when it comes to actually introducing other heroes. It set them up to be in other movies, and it didn't take away from anything. David Corenswet's adaptation of Superman was also done really well, because that's what we want to see. We want to see somebody who looks big, dumb, and goofy when he's Clark Kent, and then basically turn up and look like a massive threat when he's Superman. So I think his depiction of Superman was done really well, and one of my favorites. And not to take away from Henry Cavill, but I just love seeing a bright and happy-go-lucky Superman again, who said goofy stuff as well. Another good thing that happened during the movie was Mr. Terrific. Amazing character, extremely serious, but extremely funny at the same time. Like, a lot of the comedy that came into the movie, it came from Mr. Terrific, and I just love that. So the next thing I have is they also introduced Supergirl at the end, and she was very vulgar, and she called Clark a bitch, and I thought that was very funny. And I just love where they're going with these movies, because they're not afraid to throw in some cuss words. They're not afraid to be harsh when it comes to the villains. One thing that I do know that happened though is there was a scene where Ultraman actually punch Crypto, and that is something that was taken out of the movie because it wasn't reacted to well in screening. But I think they should have included it because that shows how fucked up Lex Luthor is in the movie. So to get back on the inclusion piece of it again, they included John Cena's Peacemaker during an interview within the film. So they're not afraid to show everybody and address everything that's going on within the bit larger universe of the DCU. And that's something Marvel needs to learn from. And then on the topic of Marvel, actually, they when the Justice Gang, I'm sure that name will be changed eventually because that's crazy. But when they were beating the monster that showed up in Metropolis, there was a headline and it said, Justice Gang beats a thing. And that's low-key a knock at Fantastic Four because Fantastic Four comes out at the end of this month. So you can see DC is throwing punches at Marvel. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this Superman movie is that this movie was not afraid to go out of the box and get away from that dark Superman that's embedded into everyone's brain at this point, from Henry Cavill playing him. And not to say Henry Cavill is a bad actor and did a bad job. He did a good job in that movie. But I think I always thought of Superman as the lighter, more happy-going type superhero. And that's not what we've seen in the last couple years. Normally they leave that to Batman to be like the dark, to be like a dark hero and to have a dark aspect to him. But the last time around they gave that to Superman as well. And me watching things like the Justice League animated TV series and all those other things, that's not what I was used to when I saw Superman. So it was just a nice fresh take on seeing a live action Superman be happy-go-lucky again, even though he did run into his moments where he had to deal with his emotions or deal with hard things. This does make me want to see what they are going to do with the Batman character going forward, because I do know that movie is going to be called Batman Brave and the Bold. And in Batman Brave and the Bold, Batman is kind of a bulkier type Batman who kind of fits the build of a Superman as well, but he's more courageous and a little bit goofy at the same time, as well as serious. So I'm wondering if James Gunn is going to go the route of a more goofy type Batman, or if he's going to keep Batman in more of a serious realm. So we'll have to see what that looks like going forward. Another thing this movie did for me was with the giant monster scene, it gave me like Justice League Unlimited vibes, because literally anything could happen in that show, as well as like all the hero inclusion. In the Justice League Unlimited series, you would see all the heroes, everybody's involved with each other. And I can very well see James Gunn building his DCU to fit the build for that type of like the Justice League series. So I'm really liking where this is going. One of my theories that I have with this movie, and I feel certain that I'm right about it, the Ultraman being revealed as Superman is something I was kind of expecting going into this movie, seeing it in the trailers and everything like that with the face covered. It was kind of obvious. So in the future, I do expect, with Ultraman not being killed off in this film, that likely we're gonna get a Doomsday storyline. Because in storylines where we have, a Superman clone or whatever, something 9 times out of 10 goes wrong and he turns into Doomsday. So I think that's something we could see moving forward. All right, the next thing I have is, with this movie doing so well in my eyes, I'm interested to see how they do a Green Lantern TV series. And if that has any ounce of energy this movie had, I think it will be great. Because we all know the last Green Lantern project we got was ass, because that movie was terrible with the CGI suit, and that just was not fitting of Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is freaking Deadpool, and that's the only character he need to be. So I'm really excited for what James Gunn has going with the DC universe, and it kind of sucks that Marvel lost him, because through and through I am a bigger Marvel fan, as you can see. But it is nice to see the DC universe coming out a little bit so far on top, because it's been a long time since we've actually gotten a good DC universe movie. Because let's be real now, The Flash was ass, and that's my favorite DC hero, so I was really upset about that. So I'm hoping this new DC universe does right by my favorite DC character. So I think we're going in a good direction with this. Another thing, I guess I'll get into my personal rating for this film. and I'll say that I think I'll give this movie a 9 out of 10. The reason I give it a 9 out of 10 is because it did the unexpected. I don't think people expected this movie to do as well as it did. I don't think people were expecting this at all. And now moving forward, I think people are gonna have more trust in the DC universe, because James Gunn did an amazing job with the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Each one of them phenomenal, had a good plan, good storyline, and that's why I kind of went into this movie trusting that it was going to be a good movie. Normally I don't do that. I normally go into stuff with like very low expectation, thinking that it's gonna flop, and then typically, like, if something does end up being bad, I'm in a better mood because I was like, all right, I expected it to be trash, so I just enjoyed the movie for what it was. This time around, it met expectations. It was just crazy. So I'm giving this movie a 9 out of 10. So please like and subscribe, and let me know your comments, what you thought about the movie, and let's get into it. Peace.